Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about something that I personally think is very interesting, and that is the battle system, or the combat system, in Pokemon Legends Arceus. For those of you who don't know, my name is Wolfey. I'm a competitive Pokemon player. I've been competing and winning tournaments since 2011, and I'm still actively competing when there are tournaments, which there aren't any right now. And so for me, the battle system is something that I care a lot about, in large part because, my history with Pokemon is really centered around battles. This is interesting in Pokemon Legends Arceus because, unlike a lot of, pretty much every Pokemon game, aside from some very clear spin-offs, the battle system has been consistent for many, many years. And Pokemon Legends Arceus is the first time that it really feels like an earnest attempt to kind of reinvent that. And so, for me, I've been thinking, playing through the game, what is that going to look like for me going forward? There are no player versus player battles in Legends Arceus, but there is some speculation, theory, whatever you want to call it, that perhaps in the future this kind of style of game could eventually overtake the traditional style. And so what I want to talk to you about today is kind of how the battle system works, given my current understanding, and what that means for the future of the game. Before we get into it, I would like to ask you to subscribe if you don't mind. I am trying to grow this channel to 1 million subscribers. I'm really passionate about competitive Pokemon. I really want to show as many people as I can how deep and complex and interesting and satisfying of a game it is. And obviously this is also my job, but for me, really, being able to kind of see where we can take a competitive Pokemon channel is very interesting. So if you don't mind, I'd really appreciate the support. A very small amount of my viewers are actually subscribed, and I know a lot of people have been enjoying the Legends Arceus content, so there's probably some new people here as well. So I don't want to harp on it too much, but if you don't mind, I really would appreciate it. We're almost at 450,000, and actually hopefully by tomorrow or the day after we should hit there, and then next stop 500,000. Anyway, let's talk about the actual the battle styles here, because that's probably what you're here to learn about. So I will say that there is basically very little information. I've done a fair bit of looking, and there's basically no detailed information online about how battles actually work. In terms of the nitty gritty, right? There's no saying oh, we really broke it down, and if your Pokemon has this stat or whatever, if you use Agile, Strong, or whatever, and there's nothing like that online. There's no really specifics. However, I've beaten the whole game at this point, and I've been paying attention to the battle system, and so I have a pretty decent rough understanding, though I can't give you numerical specifics. But let's read about what Cerebi has to say to it. So basically what it says is that your Pokemon stats determine how many actions your Pokemon take and in what order. This allows your Pokemon to attack multiple turns in a row, and allows you to alter your plans, heal in the middle, and so forth. And then on top of that, we have Agile style and Strong style. And stats are a whole other thing, so we're going to skip over that. That's not really relevant to this video. I can talk about that in a different video if you all are interested. But we have 4 moves, but each move can be used in either Agile style, which raises the speed and makes it move sooner and loses its power, but also loses its power. And then Strong style, which is the reverse. Lower action speed, increases the power and effects such as HP recovery and chance of secondary effect. So these are basically the main mechanics, right? There's a new turn order system rather than the traditional kind of speed determined turn order, and then also there's Agile style and Strong style. Now, let's go back to full screen. I do have some notes for myself just because I don't want to just be rambling at you. So, so if you see me looking at the screen, that's why. Let's talk about kind of how this works. So, as far as I can tell, Cerebi said that your stats determine the turn order. As far as I can tell, the most important / maybe the only influential stat when it comes to turn order is your speed stat. So your speed stat works in determining your turn order. So it might be your other stats have a role as well. I'm not entirely sure, but the speed is either the only important one or the most important one. I'm confident about that. Even a high level Pokemon like Bronzong, for example, if I send that out, my opponent might attack two times in a row before Bronzong moves. And for the whole game, I've been using this Crobat, and it consistently is able to move before the opponent. So that's good enough for me. My Gengar, faster Pokemon tend to move twice, and slower Pokemon tend to get moved twice again. So as far as I can tell, it's once again speed stat determining turn order, but it's slightly different because now we have we'll talk about how it's different later. I don't want to get ahead of myself. One of the big things with this new system is, like I mentioned, you can use multiple moves at a time, and you can have multiple moves used against you at a time. So there's a couple implications here. I don't like this personally. I think that there are times where it's okay, but there are a couple more edge scenarios that actually aren't that unusual that feel not fun to play, even just in a single player mode. Even just in this, playing through the game. it can feel really kind of unfair and unbalanced. So I guess the clearest example I have of this is that, let's say I have a Pokemon, I'm fighting, like, this happened the other day. I was playing against a really fast Pokemon. One of my Pokemon got knocked out. I sent in another Pokemon, and then that Pokemon also got knocked out, and I didn't have a chance to move in between those turns. So basically, this Pokemon, like, let's say, I don't remember if it actually did, but let's say it used an Agile style move, finished off one of my Pokemon, I sent in, like, my Garchomp, and then it also one-shot my Garchomp, or killed my Garchomp before my Garchomp could attack. And so in that case, it took 2 KOs during one turn, which is, in my opinion, it's not fun, right? It's not fun to send out a Pokemon and then have it, and not be able to even make a move there. And yeah, in my opinion, it's not. I don't like it. I don't think it's good. I don't think it would be good for competitive. I don't think it's. It almost reminds me of Generation 3 in a double battle where if you knock out one of their Pokemon, the switch happens mid-turn and instead of the end of the turn, like it does post Gen 3. And so, if you've watched any of like Gen 3 doubles, you can see like you can knock out a Pokemon and then target the incoming slot and knock out that Pokemon too. It's actually a pretty common strategy in like Emerald Kaizo, for example, taking advantage of the battle mechanics in double battle. So it's a pretty big deal. The other thing is that you can start a battle and immediately get knocked out. This has happened actually. If anyone's played this game, they've probably experienced this because it happened to me a lot. Like I would lead my Oshawott and the opponent would lead Pikachu. And before my menu even showed up, so I'd send out my Oshawott, I would not get a chance to move, I wouldn't get a chance to switch Pokemon, use a move, use an item, right? I would just send out my Oshawott, Pikachu would use Pikachu Blast, and then my Oshawott was dead. And I didn't get a chance to even move. So if you led badly, and this is especially prevalent in trainer battles where you don't know what they're sending out, like against wild Pokemon, sure, you kind of have no excuse there, but like in a trainer battle, like you might just send out a Pokemon, they have a good matchup, and they're faster than you, and they move first, and then you're just dead. And it's like, all right, well, guess I'm starting the battle down a Pokemon. So it doesn't feel very interesting. The other application of this is that you can actually switch and have it still be your turn. This happens a lot when I switch with my Crobat, where I'll switch out my Pokemon, I'll send in my Crobat, opponent won't make a move, and then Crobat can attack again without needing to take a turn. So, I mean, I probably don't have to tell you how bad that would be, especially for competitive singles, but I don't even think the style works in doubles, to be honest. But, like, imagine you're playing competitive singles, the opponent is, like, Landorus, and you switch in, like, I don't know, Scarf, Rotom, Frost, and then it's your turn still, and you Blizzard and kill them. Like, it seems really, 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 really bad for competitive. And of course, there's no competitive in this game, right? But that's my point is kind of to talk about how this would look if it were in a traditional game. Not saying that they should have made it a traditional game because they very clearly. I think it's good there's no PvP. The other thing about this style, this I guess like system is that agile and strong style moves are, in my opinion, kind of poorly designed. They're fun enough, but the thing is that like. They don't feel that impactful a lot of the, or maybe it's not that they don't feel that impactful. I guess, okay, there's a couple things here. Number one, there's no drawback to using these moves. I don't know if you all have noticed, but like you're not forced to like using either an agile or a strong style move. Like there's no drawback other than like the drawback is like you either have lower base power or you have like longer cooldown, but that means that like because there's no other drawback, then you just use the moves only when they're beneficial to you, you know? Like, you could literally use an agile strong style move every single turn of the game if you wanted it, like, whichever one is, like, favorable to you. And I think that's kind of silly. I don't know. Like, the game is like, oh, it takes 2 PP instead of 1. I've never come close to running out of PP in this game, ever. Not a single time have I didn't, if you told me there was no PP in this game, I'd believe you, because it's never been relevant to me. So, of course, there's that. And then, like, I mean... Because, like, there's no, like, when I say, like, drawback, maybe there should be a limit, right? Maybe you get 1 agile and 1 strong style move per battle, right? And then you say, okay, I can't just spam this every single turn if it's beneficial to me, right? Because there's no drawback to it. So you can literally use agile and strong style moves every single turn of every single game if you want, without... I mean, if you use agile style moves, you're probably, like, still doing more damage than you would be, like, just using regular moves, even if you do it every turn. Of course, it's not optimal every turn, but you know what I'm saying. It's basically, like... In my opinion, it's kind of silly. So yeah, I don't really feel like they're adding that much, right? I feel like if you're gonna like add a new mechanic, it should be something exciting, and these just don't feel exciting to me. Like they don't really feel like they're doing enough. They're somewhere in like a middle ground where they're doing too much and not enough at the same time. Like I feel like you either wanted them to do more and have a bigger drawback, or not have them at all. Because right now they're just in this weird middle ground. So I don't like strong and agile style moves. Yeah. Okay, and then the next thing I want to talk about is kind of the biggest deal here, and this is kind of the central thesis of this video, and that is that I don't know if you all have noticed. My viewers are smart, so you've probably noticed. This game fundamentally changes how Pokemon works in that it is no longer a simultaneous move game. I'm getting an error. Okay, it's no longer a simultaneous move game. It is now a sequential move game. So what that means is that think about a traditional Pokemon battle. Like you're playing against your buddy. You both lock in your moves at the same time. My Kyogre goes for Water Spout. Your Groudon goes for Eruption, right? And then the turn plays out, and things like speed stats will influence the turn. Things like, maybe you switch in, maybe it's like Ludicolo in the rain, and then you switch in like Groudon, and now the Ludicolo is not faster anymore, right? And so it'll change how the order works, how things play out in that example because of dynamic speed. But really, you're both inputting your moves at the same time, and then there's some level of uncertainty there, right? Like you don't know what your opponent's going to do, so maybe your move is bad. Maybe you're using Ice Beam into something and it has Protect, right? Like maybe you're using Hydro Pump and your opponent switches in Gastrodon and Storm Drain redirects it, right? Like there's a lot of uncertainty there when it comes to what's going to play out during the turn a lot of the time, and that's kind of the challenge of Pokemon. This game is a simultaneous move game, meaning rather than both of us locking in our moves at the same time, I choose a move, I see what happens, now it's your turn, you choose a move, you see what happens, and there is no uncertainty at all there. So if my Pikachu uses Pikachu Blast, there's no uncertainty at all. You have no option to switch. You have no option to protect. You have no option to use a priority move and KO me. When it's my turn, it's my turn, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so it's not super obvious because, it's not super obvious anymore because, because the game has no player versus player, you might not notice it. You might still think of it as sequential move because you only see your perspective, but it's not sequential move it's not simultaneous move. It's now sequential move instead. And so, the wild Pokemon are each taking their own individual turn based on what you've done. It's actually kind of similar to Gen 1's mechanic where the AI would cheat and see what move you made and then make its own move. Except that here it's not cheating because it's actually just each individual AI taking its own turn. It just doesn't feel that way because it's an AI, and it doesn't have to, there's no waiting for the AI to make its move. It just makes its move. And so, so basically that changes things pretty significantly if you think about it. It removes it removes basically all the uncertainty from Pokemon. Because if this were like a competitive, let's say they had PvP battles, the way that it would look is it would go back and forth between my move, your move, my move, your move. So that does a couple things. Number one, like I mentioned, there's no uncertainty, which is really uninteresting. I think part of the magic of Pokemon is the fact that you don't know what your opponent's going to do. It also basically makes switching entirely worthless, right? If you think about it, not entirely worthless, but nearly entirely worthless because your opponent doesn't have to predict you to switch because by the time it's their turn, you've already whatever's on the field is going to take your attack. So if I have Zapdos on the field and my opponent switches in Rhyperior, it's not like I waste a Thunderbolt going for that move. I just switch out my Zapdos, and then it's their turn to attack, right? So you could, in theory, run into an issue where it'd be very easy, I think, in this game because there's no predictions, basically. There's no predictions. Yeah, did I mention that? There's no predictions in a game, in a style like this, because your opponent doesn't have a chance to react before your move. But yeah, since there's no predictions, you could very easily get locked in a switch loop. It's not even that impossible. If each team had two Pokemon that, kind of invalidated each other, then you would just switch infinitely every single turn. And there'd be no way around that. So, and you can't even get around it with a prediction because there's no predictions because your opponent doesn't get the chance to make a move before you attack. So, yeah, because there's no uncertainty, I really don't like the style, and that leads me into my next point, which is that this can't work in a main series game, in my opinion. I don't think that sequential, even I don't think the people who make the games think too much about the competitive scene, to be honest. I don't think that that's their main focus. I think it gets some attention for sure, but I don't think the competitive scene is their main audience, nor do I really think they should be. That's not my point. But the thing is that even the people who don't think about competitive should realize that this would be really, really, really bad for a game with PvP combat, I think. And I think that's probably a big part. I think a big part of the reason why this game doesn't have PvP combat is because it doesn't work with the battle system. And I think it's good. I think it would actually be really bad if this game had PvP because it's not. It's just bad. It's bad. It's totally fine for a playthrough. It's totally fine for playing through the game without playing against other people. But to play against another person with this would be really bad, I think. And not fun, not engaging, not interesting. So, yeah, I don't think that this can work in a main series game, in a traditional game. I know this is technically main series, but, you know, a more classic style game. I don't think that this combat system can work. I think that this is probably a good fit for Legend style games, and we probably shouldn't expect to see too much of it in a traditional game going forward for the reason that I described. It's not. First of all, it's very different from the formula. Second of all, there's no interactivity with it. There's no predictions, anything like that. And yeah, there's probably one more, but I forgot, so we'll just move on. Yeah, like I said, I think this does work very well for Legend Arceus, because you're only ever playing as the computer. Again, I do think that there are times where it's frustrating, where like the opponent will make 3 moves in a row, and you know, I'll be like, okay, well, I guess I just lost 3 Pokemon then. But overall, I do think that it works pretty nicely. In like the actual like main story of the game, because it's fresh, it's new, it's interesting, and it's not super unfun until you do a ton of it or until you get really cheesed, but most of the time it still feels close enough to traditional Pokemon that, you know, it doesn't feel like you're doing something totally different. And the times where it feels bad, it like you're playing as the computer, so you should probably be winning anyway, right? Like realistically. So I do think that this works for Legends Arceus. I don't have any gripes about it in Legends Arceus. I do have gripes if this were to become the default, because I think it'd be really bad. And so what does that mean going forward? This is kind of my last scripted point. And for me, I think it means that this should basically confirm, I guess there's 3 scenarios. Number 1, this is the last Pokemon game ever. Don't think that's super likely. Number 2, Generation 9 is going to be, if they make Generation 9, or whatever the next Pokemon game is going to be, will be in the traditional style, because this doesn't work for battles, and battling is a core part of the Pokemon franchise, and battling against other people is probably also a core part of the Pokemon franchise, as far as I can tell. So either they do away with PvP combat, or they go back to the old battle style, right? Which is, I think, kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Though there could be some balancing issues, like it could be fixed, but it's better than this, at least for PvP specifically. And then I guess the last option is that, you know, maybe Legends Arceus, maybe the vision for Pokemon for the future is totally different than any of us can expect, and so maybe this does become the future. You know, maybe they say, you know what, we're done with battling. We don't want people to fight each other anymore. Now we're just focused on the PvP and the in-game experience, and that would be bad for me. But you know, like we can't rule anything out for sure. So those are kind of my thoughts on the whole thing. I think it's interesting for sure. It's been cool to kind of figure out the battle system and like see how it works. Like you can probably tell I'm not the biggest fan of it, because I think about things in terms of like what they would mean for like PvP, like, you know, traditional battling. But I thought it was totally fine for Legends Arceus. I don't have any gripes about it there. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I don't want to talk when I don't have anything to say. So let's wrap it up here. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm really curious about what people's impressions are of the battle system, because I know that my context is very different than a lot of people's. So yeah, so I'm interested to hear what you all think. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Bye-bye.